I'm going to show you how to use IP access list in Astra. IP access list will help you manage the different IP addresses that you want to give access to your database. The first thing I want you to notice is that we have two databases, test1 and test2. We are in the database test1 in the CQL console, and we have access to that to run commands. If you head over to settings, you will see the IP access list. And one of the first things you can do is restrict public access. You'll see this message here notifying you that you are restricting all public access to your database. This will temporarily make your database unusable until you add your IP address, as you can see here in the CQL console. Now we'll head back over to our IP access list. Here we can add in our IP address. We'll click on Add Access, Add IP Address. As you can see here, we can copy our current IP address. In the description, we'll put home IP and then click on Add. Now, as you can see, our home IP address is enabled in the access list, and we'll have access to Astra and the CQL console. Now we can head back over to the CQL console, and as you can see, it's working perfectly. Next, we're going to check out additional features on how to add multiple IP addresses at one time. So we're going to head back over to settings, and we are going to delete our home IP for now. We'll add it back in shortly. Click on Add Access, and we're going to upload from a file. We're going to select a JSON file, and here we included 3 separate IP addresses. Click on Open, and you'll see the 3 addresses populated here, 3 total. And click on Import, and now you can see the addresses under Managing Endpoints and that all 3 are enabled. If we head back over to the CQL console, you'll see that we still have access to it. And finally, I'm going to show you the last way to add IP addresses. We're going to go back to settings and delete our current IP addresses. And we're going to go back to Add Access and click on Import from Database. And we are going to import from test2, which is our second database that I mentioned earlier. As you can see, we already have 2 IP addresses defined in test2. Click Import, and it will bring those over, and they are enabled. Head over to the CQL console, and you'll see once again we have access. I'm going to show you how to use the Astra DevOps API in order to manage the IP access list in Astra. In order to do that, you're going to need the application token from Astra and pass it in a header in order to access the API. Additionally, you are going to need to get a very specific URL based on your request. This request is get access list for a database, and you can see the URL here. We can make these requests in Postman. Postman is a great service that helps manage our requests. As you can see, I have all the requests for DevOps API access list here. And here's our first request for get access list for a database. I have the URL that we got from the documentation, and I inserted my database ID here. And I'm going to pass a header. The key is authorization, and the value is bearer, and then the token value. And now all I have to do is click send. And as you can see, this outputs some JSON and gives our address here. Here's the IP address, a description, and lets you know if it's enabled or not. If you want to view that in the UI, you can head over to your database. You can see your endpoint here. Additionally, you can run other requests that can add to, delete, update that access list. So let's check out updating. As you can see, again, we have a URL. This time it is a patch request. If we head over to headers, we can see we have our token. And this time in the body, we are going to pass some JSON, and we are going to update the description of our database. Before it said home IP, as you can see in the UI. And now it is going to say success. So we're going to click send. Status is 200, so it was successful. And if we go back to get access list, you can see it's home IP, and we are going to send. Description now equals success. Let's check it in the UI. Description is success. Now you can see we have a variety of other requests that we can make, and you can learn more about those in the documentation.